Sweet Success is brought to you by Hospitality.fm, the podcast network for hospitality professionals.
I'm Keir Weimer, and you're listening to Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I am really excited to have Keir Weimer on the show. Keir is a true visionary in the luxury real estate and hospitality space. He's the founder and CEO of Weekender Hotels, which operates a portfolio of 9 hotels across the Northeast with exciting expansion plans that we'll get to discuss today. He's also the author of 2 incredible books, the first of which was called A Quest for Redemption, Stories from Prison. Keir, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, really excited to be here with you, Katie.
I can't wait to dive into all things Weekender Hotels. But before we do, your path to success has been anything but conventional. Can you tell me about that pivotal moment that really reshaped your entire life and subsequent career?
Sure. Yeah. Let's jump right in. Yeah. So it's definitely a tough story, and I'll kind of stay on some of the kind of just the overview of it for sake of time in our discussion. But I was involved in an alcohol-related boating accident when I was in college. I was 23 years old. It was a horribly tragic event. It took the life of a friend of mine, and it seriously injured everybody in the boat. It was on a lake in the Adirondacks of upstate New York. As a result of this, I ended up getting sentenced to 2 to 6 years in state prison. I was taken away identity, freedom, life as I should have been after causing this horrible tragedy, and brought into the world of state corrections at the age of 24 after being on bail for a bit and going through the court system. I spent most of my 20s in prison, learning how to survive, learning how to grow, learning how to adapt, and learning how to prepare for what life may be like on the other side. I had a distinct opportunity and decision point on a fork in the road, which is, do I let this horrible tragedy define the rest of my life and essentially claim 2 lives, or do I repurpose my life for the better? And luckily, I was able to have the strength in a very dark moment to choose the latter and to really choose on getting better and doing the tough work that required, was required of me to do that, so that I could take that time away and really become a really stronger, better version of myself, so that when I was released back into society, I could find a way to contribute and build a life that I was proud of. And that's, what I've done now since then. The foundation of everything in my life is really sobriety. I've just celebrated about 17 years, last fall, clean and sober. I just turned 41 last year, and everything is basically based on that, a conscious choice to live free and clear of mind-altering substances and to be fully present in life, and to honor the memory of my friend who's no longer here, and to honor the ambition of what I am endeavoring to do with the rest of my life. And none of those things could happen if I continued to drink alcohol. Now, as much as this horrible event was an accident and was unintentional, it still was very preventable. So it's something that I hold very close. It's something I've forgiven myself over, and my friend's mom has forgiven me as well at sentencing, but it's something that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. So that's really informed all my decisions, my value system, my goals in life, how I live, who I associate with, why I live. Really everything is, you might imagine, from a life-altering event that significant.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on 17 years. That is absolutely incredible. And just what an inspirational story. Like you said, you were so young at the time. And I think a lot of people could have gone very different ways than you did after that. And so it's so inspiring to hear the amount of effort and time and intention that you put towards what's going to come next, as opposed to just seeing my life is over right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. It was a lot of hard work and it took a while to get there, but I knew that that's what I, needed and wanted to do.
Yeah. And I know after you were released from prison, you had applied to 7 graduate schools, if I have my story correct, and you were rejected from all of them because of your history. How did you eventually overcome that stigma and start building this life that you've created for yourself?
Yeah, so I thought my way to reintegrate and kind of, get back into society was through academia. I'd always excelled in school. I was suspended and essentially kicked out, expelled, but with the option to potentially return after the accident. And then I finished my, I think it was 4 or 5 classes, one semester when I got out. So I was 29, almost 30 years old. This is about 11, going on 12 years ago, I think now. And I basically reapplied. Syracuse University let me back in. I finished the degree. And then I thought I would go to graduate school and do a, dual degree in law and business. And then that would be my way of reintegrating and getting a job and doing all that. And, the world, the universe had a different plan because not one hiring or admissions committee rather let me in, even though I made the turnaround story, my focus, my goals in the future, what I've learned as a result of that, like the central theme and part of my application. So that was really tough. That was, reading that last denial letter, I kind of had another, I would say, life-altering decision or path to really choose. And that was that I'm going to not let my fate and my future be decided by others. I'm going to take a conscious role in determining my future. And I'm going to chart a path based on what I want to achieve and what I want this life to look like. So for me, that meant being an entrepreneur. That meant charting my own course and finding a way to build things, businesses, teams, impact in a very self-reliant way. I had developed some of those skills to be self-reliant in prison to survive. And I had developed some of those entrepreneurial early seeds of ambition and skill before that. When I was in college, I had started a painting business my freshman year when I was 18 years old and hired 12, people and painted a bunch of houses that summer. That's where I really got my first kind of, I would say, introduction to entrepreneurship and business and my interest in it and desire to do more in it. So that helped. And then when I was out and I got all these denial letters, that moment of committing to entrepreneurship and creating my own path was really it was like a weight lifted. It was this huge open expanse that just widened. The challenge was then, all right, how do you jump into it? Mm-hmm. So I decided to take what I went to school for, which is general business, finance, economics, entrepreneurship, and couple it with an interest I had had for years, which is real estate. And I said, well, where do you start in real estate? Well, you probably just get a license and go sell some stuff. And so I did. And then I started a career as a broker and I moved into Sotheby's International Realty. I started a team and first year was super tough. I made no sales. I was like 40,000 in debt. It was horrible. I was still living at home on a curfew, on parole, getting drug tested, completely broke, actually in debt, completely unemployable, but not giving up on myself. And then finally the first property sold, then the next sold. And then that second year, I think I was like the top broker in my company. And then the year after, one of the top like 3 brokers in the entire MLS. And I started the team and it just was like, it started to grow from there. And then that was the beginning of starting several successive, somewhat interrelated companies in real estate, kind of that lifestyle real estate luxury space. And then that was some of the early inception story or inspiration to start Weekender, which is outdoor hospitality lifestyle brand that before I even realized it was being inspired by the things I was doing. We often have to make several stops on our journey to get to where we ultimately want to be. Yeah. And for me, where I'm at now as the, founder and CEO of Weekender is uniquely where I need to be and want to be, which is building all these amazing experiences and properties, this awesome team, and it's hitting on all the things that are important and exciting to me, which is, the creative side of hospitality, the experiential side, the design side, the marketing and branding side, with all the other side of stuff that I also love, which is the real estate side, the underwriting side, the finance side, the capital markets, acquisitions, all of that as well. And it kind of brings it all together. So yeah, I'm, super grateful to be where I'm at now. Finally found my home, if you will, after starting several different businesses that I've now transitioned or sold. And I'm kind of like all in 150% on what we're building at Weekender.
After hosting for more than 2 years, I finally made the decision to switch to Lodgify. And honestly, I should have done it sooner. If you haven't heard of them yet, Lodgify is a property management software built for short-term rentals and boutique hotels. They make it easy to manage your calendar, update cross-channel listings, automate guest messages, connect with OTAs, and even build a direct booking website. What I love most is that it's intuitive, it's organized, and most importantly, it's setting me up for what's next, whether that be adding more short-term rentals to my portfolio or maybe opening a boutique hotel one day. Lodgify is the kind of platform that grows with you. Visit lodgify.com and use code SWEET20, that's sweet like hotel suite, to get 20% off their annual plans today. Check out the link in the show notes for more. Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you said about several stops along our journey to get where we're going. And it's so easy for us to look backwards and paint a beautiful narrative and say, oh, this is why all of that had to happen that way. But when we're living it, when we're in the middle of it, like you said, that first year that you said, okay, I'm not going to have others control my fate. I'm going to go into real estate. But that first year, you're in debt, you're living at home, you have curfew, all these like real life things that are making it hard. You're not seeing, hey, guess what? In 10 years, you're going to be an incredible founder and in an amazing driving seat, right? So what do you think it was in that, after that first year, that first transaction that really started that snowball for you? What do you think it was that shifted everything?
Yeah, it's probably a few things, but the momentum of getting that first sale, obviously, the gratification of, hey, what I'm doing is actually working and the hard work is paying off, and then seeing where that could lead. So for me, transactional real estate brokerage work was always a stepping stone to something greater. And that was, development, ownership, maybe a brand, right? Didn't really know it at the time, but I knew that wasn't my end all, last stop. So I think that having that openness, but knowing that you got to put in the work, you got to be in the trenches, you got to get the experience, make the money, make the impact early, even if it's something you don't want to do forever. That was important. And then having it be adjacent to what I really ultimately am doing now. And then seeing how my personal values influenced the business and the brand uniquely. So I've always grown up loving to travel. My parents were able to take us to several amazing places, and I'm grateful for that. And still at an early age, a love for other cultures, countries, traveling and experiences. And then also the great outdoors. I spent a lot of time growing up outside, doing many different hobbies, from hiking and, biking to, skiing in the winter and exploring the woods, and just, going to summer camp and learning all the skills of being, an outdoorsman, if you will. So that was also really instrumental. That helped, I think, form some of the core values and underpinnings of what Weekender is all about, which is reconnecting people to the great outdoors, to adventure, to experiences, to, all the amazing things that this world has to offer, and doing it with these, renovated, design forward, smart hotels and really iconic destinations as a base camp or a jumping off point for people to go and do that.
Right. And I first learned of you and Weekender because I have a short-term rental in Saratoga Springs, and there was an old motel, nothing fancy at all, very run down, that I read was recently purchased and was going to be redeveloped and redesigned. So of course I went down the Google rabbit hole and was so excited to learn about you, about Weekender, and that this hotel is now going to be called the Ambler. So I guess take me back to the conception of Weekender through to today, to that property, and then what you have next as well.
Yeah, so, Weekender, so I bought my first resort hotel property actually in 2015 when I was only in my second year as a broker, and it was a waterfront resort up in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. I was the listing agent on it, couldn't find a buyer, ended up buying it, recusing myself as an agent, recruited two of my friends from Manhattan to move up to be day-to-day managers, and we renovated that whole thing, closed it down for 6 months, reopened it 4th of July 2016. 3 kids.
How old were you at this point?
Yeah, I was probably 33 at that point.
How did you know? I mean, obviously, like you said, you came from a business background, finance background, but how did you know how to do that?
Well, we didn't. So bottom line, we had no experience in hotels, events, construction, food and beverage, restaurant, any of that. And we just saw an opportunity and we figured it out. And we created a plan. We had a vision. We knew the market had a need for this. And we're just like, we're going to figure this out. We're just one way or the other. We're going to figure this out. We know there's demand there. So we took a calculated risk and it really paid off. The first 2 years were tough, but then we started to hit our groove. We won a ton of awards. We ended up, very successful there financially. We refinanced it and we kind of tripled the value in it. So all the things went right there. And then fast forward to COVID hitting in 2020. I was under contract to buy my second hotel in May of 2020, 2 months after COVID hit. And everybody was like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you buying a hotel? It's a pandemic. Like, that's insanity. I said, no, I think we're going to do well. We're going to capture all the demand, people leaving the cities, come to the outdoor environments, the mountains, the lakes, and be successful and do what we did at one property at another one. But yeah, so and just to add on to that, that was like the inception story before I knew it was. And then I bought that second property. It was quiet for 2 months. I was like, oh my God, I made a mistake. And then it was just off to the races, super busy. That's been one of our top performers. And then the ambition and the vision around a brand and a portfolio grew from there. So I started Weekender, officially incorporated it in March of 2021, 4 years ago, last month. And now we have 9 hotels in 3 states. We employ about 100 people, and we're looking to add 3 more properties this year. Part of what I'm doing is out on this 3-month RV quest, if you will, out west, looking for new areas, regions, and hotels to move the brand a little bit more westward outside of just the Northeast.
Wow. And for anyone who's just listening, Keir is really embodying this outdoor lifestyle right now. He is not only wearing a cowboy hat, which of course you all know I'm a big fan of hats, but he's in Moab right now, right, Keir?
I am, yes. Yep. I'm here for a week, set up in the RV and epic views of the mountains and the desert, snow-capped, and then down here with the cactus. So yeah, it's a great setting. Very inspiring.
But it's a stylish RV. It's got that weekender flair. Yeah. I can feel it.
Yeah.
So all of the 9 hotels that you currently have, do you guys own them as well as operate them? Or how do you guys look at that? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We're an owner operator of our assets. We firmly believe in that, being really close to the guest experience from the initial renovation, design, conceptual, creative plan, all the way through to, the long-term operation. So that is our model. So we have our own, management company, Weekender Hospitality, and then our brand. And then we obviously have a portfolio of, owner owned and operated hotels. Now we are considering launching third-party management division soon. So we will be actually looking to help other owners and portfolio owners manage their unbranded hotels and assets for a fee. This is definitely a pain point we're hearing among owners, is the handling the very people and operationally intensive day-to-day of hotel management. So that's something we're looking to roll out.
Well, and particularly we see that in the Northeast, right? Where the Ambler is, which we were talking about. Saratoga, great example. Lake George, I have another property in Bolton Landing. This is an area that is ripe for design-driven motels, yet it hasn't really started yet. It's starting, and I'm so happy to see the Ambler coming to really push that all along. But I imagine a lot of that is, like you said, the operational pain point.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I think people, were enamored with the idea of this, of boutique hotels. It's definitely become trendy over the last several years, really even a little bit before COVID, but then definitely during COVID. But there's so many pockets of opportunity in different regions that don't have, really anything that's kind of, indie, unique, fun, cool. And then if it does, it doesn't mean it's managed well. So there's, that, because you have a lot of hobbyist hoteliers now that are, again, doing this because it was a dream or it seemed cool or it was like the next cool thing. But then they get into the day-to-day and they're like, oh crap, like this is a lot harder than I thought, or I don't know how to do this well, or I'm not making money, or all the above.
The amount of places that you see that photograph well, and then you get there and the mattress is super thin and the linens are really itchy and no one wants to help you. And they're all treating you like you're an inconvenience. And you're like, you got into this for the wrong reasons, I think.
Yeah. Design's a bit different than operations. Yeah.
Exactly. So obviously you said you've grown the team. You're now on this trip out west to look at expansion. Talk to us more broadly about the expansion plans and kind of the future, 5-10 year vision for Weekender.
Yeah. So we are on the cusp in probably the next 30 days. We're going to be launching our first fund. So we're raising outside capital now. We've not really taken on, outside capital other than a few friends and family. On the last couple of hotels, been kind of self-funding, very closely held. Our brand, we really, are grateful to have been able to do that. But now our ambitions are really growing, and so too are the capital needs of a very capital-intensive business on the real estate acquisition side. So we are going to be raising our first fund over the coming balance of the year that will probably fund the acquisition of about 6 or 7 hotels over the next, let's say, 18-ish months.
Wow.
And we're going to be doing that, over the coming year and a half. And then we'll be launching successive vintages of that fund, if you will, kind of like a private equity fund would do, different closed-end vintages based on timing, raised, hit the goal, deploy capital in hotels that meet our very stringent underwriting criteria, and making sure that we're still choosing and selecting as good as we have up until now, which has been very good.
Mm-hmm.
But we will be doing that and expanding to different regions. So there's several hundred what we would call weekender markets across the U.S. that are outdoor adventure-oriented leisure markets that are close to forever demand. For us, that's state and national parks. That's world-class hiking, skiing, mountain biking, water features, activities outdoors is what we like to be within 20 to 30 minutes of, those.
Mm-hmm.
And there's hundreds of those throughout the U.S. in all the different regions, from Pacific Northwest, a ton, to the Rocky Mountains, to Southwest, to, even a lot of the Midwest states, exploring and learning more about those markets. But right now, our second region of expansion is really Rocky Mountain states. So that's why I'm out here on this trip. We're looking specifically in Utah, Colorado, maybe Montana, and also looking at some stuff in those surrounding states as well.
The next time you're traveling or celebrating an important occasion, book a Flytographer photo shoot. They make it easy to capture memories by connecting you with hand-picked professional photographers in over 350 destinations around the world. I should know. Capturing memories with family and friends is super important to me, and I've booked Flytographers from Maine to Paris to London. A Flytographer shoot is an essential part of every trip I plan. They also have an incredible affiliate and travel advisor program. Add a photo shoot to your customer's next itinerary and earn 10% commission. Visit flytographer.com/sweet success for $25 off your first shoot, or to sign up as an affiliate or travel advisor. That's FLYTOGRAPHER.com/sweet, like hotel suite, success. Amazing. Incredible. What is the long-term goal? Are you hoping one day to be acquired by one of the big guys, or are you hoping to stay independent, or kind of like you said earlier, just, see as the days go by what looks good and what makes sense?
Yeah, the goal is really not to sell. It was never the vision to build this to exit. I want to build a long-term, international, impactful, independent brand that can be generational, that can cross generations, that can, inspire people to grow through adventure, through travel, through explorations, again, across generations, parents, grandkids, kids. And I think that's really important and exciting work. And it's going to take a while to do that at scale. So our big goal for our 10-year goal is to really get to a point in 10 years from now where we can be inspiring over 1 million guests per year at our locations around the world. So that's exciting because we're, at a fraction of that now, but it is starting to really grow and ramp. And it's exciting to just see those memories, those experiences, the shares that people, bring to our general managers in the field or write on the reviews online. It's, that's what makes it all, really exciting and worthwhile when you see the feedback from guests.
Yeah, and when they're parroting back what you're saying that the goal is, and you're hearing them connect and be outside and get out of their space, and you're like, that's exactly what we're building. That's wonderful.
Exactly.
So when you say international, are you hoping to have international locations or just attract international guests, or a bit of both?
Yeah, both. We already attract some international now, but we do plan to own and operate in different countries, probably starting with, Canada, and then some countries, adjacent and more easily serviced in the, kind of in the West here and, northern hemisphere, and then kind of expand and move out from there.
Yeah. And earlier you mentioned about operating a hotel or a motel is very different than designing one. So when you think about weekender operations, how do you approach hospitality?
Yeah, I mean, it's a multi-pronged, framework and animal, right? It's everything from services relations to the experiential side, to programming, to being a good host, to cleanliness, to the working, ability of your physical plant and your actual buildings and your mechanicals, to, the first impression, right? And the emotion somebody feels when they drive up, the feeling they get when they leave. Like, it's all those things and then some. And then it's the very people intensive management of a team that's, often hourly with housekeeping and maintenance in, somewhat rural, tertiary, outdoor leisure markets. So that's sometimes a challenge. But yeah, it's all those things. It's just having an intentional plan and strategy and a goal, and then building culture around your values, right? So you attract the right people and you repel the wrong people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I am personally really interested in owning a motel one day. What are some things that you wish you knew before you got started that now feel so obvious to you?
Probably a bunch of things, but
maybe a third book in the works then.
Yeah, I would like to get back to writing. Maybe I'll write my next installation of my memoirs from the desert here in my old chair. I would say maybe the biggest thing for young, like entry, first time, I'll tell you, would be really understanding the financials of the business, right? If you're not a numbers person, you don't come from that background, or you're not comfortable with it or skilled in it, you got to find somebody who is to bring on your team.
Yeah.
Because that is critically important, is knowing what your cost structure needs to look like, benchmarking against the industry, managing to a budget, and course correcting when you're off. Otherwise, like, you won't have a business, right? So like, that is like numero uno. Find a good, accountant, back office accounting, system, meaning like people supported by software. If you can't do it, don't just hire a bookkeeper that's got no experience in hotels. Like, you need an advisor. You don't need just a vendor, you need an advisor. So whether it's a part-time consultant, or it's somebody that you give a little piece of equity if they're going to be really involved, or, it's a friend even early starting up that has that accounting and finance background, you need that skill set on the team, bottom line. The other stuff is really important, but if you don't get the numbers right, there's not going to be money there to, fund all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great answer. You just were talking about writing, and I can kind of see you light up when you talk about it. So I would guess your first book was a lot about processing that extremely emotional experience that you had gone through.
Yep.
But tell me if I'm right, and kind of when you wrote that, and what writing is to you. Is it this creative outlet? Is it a way to process your thoughts? And it sounds like it's something that maybe you're not doing a lot of now, but it is something you want to get back to.
Yeah, no, it was just that it was very cathartic for me to write that. I wrote it on a typewriter in prison. I, mailed the stories out to my dad, who's no longer with us, but was, my best friend and confidant and partner in this project. He helped me edit them and gave me feedback. And then when I got out, we cleaned them up and hired another editor, and then was able to independently publish that and reach a lot of people with it and inspire a lot of people. So that was exciting. It was very much a work of, I would say it was part kind of therapy for me on how I was experiencing that world. It was part being a journalist on capturing what I was experiencing, what others were. It was part, almost toying with this idea of creative nonfiction. So it was a little bit of storytelling of other people's journeys in there. And it was actually really fun to write. It was hard, but it was fun to write. So yeah, that was my first work. I've always really enjoyed writing. I wrote another book when I was out several years later that was published in early 2020, right when the pandemic hit, actually right before February, called Live Inspired. That was kind of more of a series of short vignettes to start or kind of end your day, to help give a little bit of inspiration and clarity around different areas of your life, from work to health to, finances to hobbies, just the main pillars that for me, were really important to be intentional about. And I drew inspiration from so many different people in the space, and, personal development and trying to be a little bit better every day was always important to me from, a very early age, but more so after what happened when I was sent away was really my the beginning of my journey in self-development and improvement. And then I wanted to, find a way to give back. So that book and both books were a form of doing that. And now, I've gotten busier with Weekender, but I really do want to find and make time to get back to writing, to get back to speaking more. I used to speak a lot more to various groups. I would like to get back to doing that and mentoring. So we are thinking about how do we build, meaning how me, but also how do we build community into more of what we're doing? So that's actually a big goal, in the next year or two is how do we do that? How do we pay it forward more? How do we, share what we're learning? How do I take what I've been through and inspire others and do that, a little bit more intentionally? I think with COVID hitting, with Weekender starting, and with my focus being dialed, I haven't been able to be as involved or intentional about that part of my life and my career that I would like to be. I started kind of that personal brand around the book and speaking a little bit before COVID. And, it's hard to do a lot of things. The one lesson that I could give your audience that probably the most impactful thing I learned in my career was the power of focus and of singularity. Like, I was not focused on one thing for so long. Part of it's because I have ADHD. Part of it's because I'm just, an entrepreneur wired that way. And we're like flashy things that I no idea we go after. But when I got focused on Weekender and I got out of the other things, businesses, pursuits, projects, the impact I was able to have, also the income, also the scale was like 100x from what it was before, because now my attention, like a laser, was like focused on one thing, whereas before it was spread out horizontally. And so nothing was ever really hitting its potential or really, rising to the level that it was capable of. So I think focus and singularity of focus, I would say, is the most impactful lesson I've learned in business and life. And I think the thing that a lot of people really struggle with.
Yeah, I could see that coming through, because at first you're saying, I feel bad that I haven't been able to do these things. And you seem like someone that there's actually like 36 hours in your day, as opposed to the 24 that the rest of us have. Yet still, everything that you are accomplishing and doing right now needs those 36 hours. And like you said, it's that focus that's allowing you to grow the brand to where it is and where it will get to in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. And it requires getting good at saying no, so that you can say yes later.
Yeah.
And for me, the community stuff, the things I just touched on, I think that's actually accretive and supportive of what we're doing overall. So it would actually not be a distraction. It would be an enhancement, and it would create kind of a flywheel effect. But that said, it still has to have a very concerted, intentional strategy around it. And if it doesn't, then it's not going to be accretive and supportive. It's going to be distracted.
And it's only going to be a flywheel because you've given yourself the 4 or 5 years of focus to know that it fits into the Weekender ethos. So when you were doing a lot of speaking engagements, I know you spoke a lot about finding purpose and potential. How did you find that within yourself, and how do you suggest other people go about thinking about that for themselves?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, obviously I had a lot of time on my hands when I was away, and I had a lot of reflecting and self-introspection and had the wherewithal, and grateful that I had the self-awareness to really like zoom out and almost disassociate with myself and my life from before, and then see what was wrong with that. How did I get there? How did that happen under my watch? And then where did I want to go in life? And what was the deficit? Like, what was the gap? Like, what was I going to need to do as a person to change, to get over here or from here? Right. So there's all that. I think step one is seeing like, what's the divide? Like, are you, meaning like, is anybody in this, walk of life, if you're in a place now where you're not fully activated, fully happy, fully aligned, fully in purpose, or in what you feel is your, soul, God-given, whatever you want to call it, reason for being here, meaning you're activated, excited every day about what you're doing work-wise, you're in fulfilling relationships, you're surrounded by great people. If that's not you, which is most people is not there, then I think doing this exercise of just self-reflection and, getting a journal out, writing down some of the things that, are maybe not a 10, right? Or that you're not super happy with, or that you want to grow in, and then starting to like get clear on the destination. That's super important. So I think a lot of people work really, really hard. They have great intentions. They're super smart, but they're doing like all the things that they think they should be doing, or that like school, society, parents like tell them is success, or like what a good life looks like. And then they get to be like 35, 40, sometimes later 45, and they're like, crap, I built all this stuff and now I feel like I'm living in somebody else's reality or somebody else's version of success, or I'm in my own version of a prison.
Right.
And I think that's tragic. And I think it happens all the time. So I think getting real about where you're at and where you want to go is critical. And that means getting really creative and really honest about like filling and coloring out a destination that like is happiness for you. So what does that look like? Who are you surrounded with? Where do you live? What does your day look like? You know, what does your wealth and contribution look like? Getting clear on that is like step one, right? And then being super honest and accountable about where you're at today, because only then can you know what's the delta look like. What is it going to take from getting where I'm at today to this like ideal picture of life and happiness for me? That is like, I would say, probably the most important exercise I can recommend, which is just getting clarity around that.
Keeping up with online reviews across platforms is tough, but FeedCheck makes it easier by bringing all reviews from all channels into one place. In addition to tracking your own feedback, you can even monitor competitors to see how you compare. They provide deep insights into customer sentiment, trending topics, common issues, and patterns that might otherwise be overlooked. Plus, real-time alerts mean you can respond quickly before things escalate, and AI-powered suggestions help you craft better responses. So, if you want to stay ahead of your reputation, book a demo with FeedCheck at feedcheck.co/sweetsuccess or through the link in the podcast notes. Yeah. And from everything that you've told us about yourself, it's so clear why starting Weekender Hotels would be that perfect fit for you. But I imagine when you first did that exercise, you weren't like, create the world's best outdoor hospitality brand.
Yeah.
So the little steps along the way, is it just following those little signs and those things that you know are the 10 out of 10s and are making you happy and guiding you there, and eventually trusting that you're going to end up in the spot that you are meant to be.
Good point. It's definitely not like you're not going to always know, or shall I say your destination won't always be fixed or static, and it shouldn't be. It should evolve as your life evolves, as you grow, and as your ambition grows. But that said, I think your values should stay pretty consistent, right? So I think getting clear on what your values are, what do you stand for? What are yeses? What are, hell yeses, and what are no's and hell no's? What are those like non-starters, non-negotiables for you? That helps you create what I would call like a decision and filtering matrix from which you will allow things into your world in orbit and you will prevent things from entering. That's really important. Most people are not super clear on that. And that just takes some time, right? That takes some introspection, some self-reflection, and it also takes some feedback. So a very tactical exercise that you could do to understand more about, your values and yourself. If you're having trouble being like super honest, and it is tough to like think about and talk about ourself and, those things that are most important sometimes are like our character predispositions, is what I found is find, let's say 5 people that will not lie to you, that'll just tell you the truth, that are good friends from childhood, people you've known for a while, that will just tell it like it is, and ask them to spend 5 minutes, write you a short paragraph on like the things that basically they first think of when they think of you. So what are the things that they think of when they think of you, right? So what are the things that you're best at? What are the things that you're most known for? What are some of the character strengths? And then also on the other side, what are some of the things that they think you could work on? And tell them to give them permission to be super honest and transparent with you, because you're looking to grow from this. That's why you're asking them to do this. It's not a critique. Yeah. It's a feedback loop. And do it with people that you are safe with, safe space, totally honest, and give them the permission to be honest. That right there will give you invaluable feedback that maybe can identify some blind spots you're not even aware of.
That's incredible. I love those suggestions. I want to ask you the final 3 questions that I ask everyone. And the first is, what was the best hospitality experience that you've ever had?
And on the spot, I'm just going to choose, it's not the best one, but it's just one that comes to mind because it's like recently salient and timely. And it's also unpredictable. Like what I'm about to say, you would not predict me to say it. So I really prioritize and love independent boutique brands for obvious reasons. I don't like staying in the big branded stuff. I just don't, right? It's all the same wherever you go. Like, that's the point. Consistency, lack of variety, creativity, and inspiration. That said, there are some high-end brands in the luxury space that do a nice job at what they do, such as the Four Seasons. So I sometimes have events that I go to. I don't book them, but I'm a member of these small business entrepreneur masterminds that book these events where we get together, other business owners, work on our business, work on ourselves, share challenges, wins, and do it in amazing settings across the world and adventure together and just do life together with some awesome humans. And the Four Seasons in Costa Rica, but also in Punta Mita, Mexico, was like some of the best thoughtful, intentional service from the moment that you get off the plane to them literally there with a Sprinter van with water and the smell and the sound. It's all dialed in. And the person that greets you is like super on it, to taking a private boat literally from, the airport to this peninsula where the Four Seasons was set, that is so private and remote. So it's like the access, the approach, the impression was all intentional, right? Setting the mood, getting your emotions calm, the somatic, if you will, level setting or centering. And wow, you have now arrived and you can let all that go from your life and all the stresses you may have had. It's not here. So be here at this space in this moment in time. They do a really, really good job at that. Now, it's super luxury, right? It's super expensive, but it has a time and a place. And there's something nice about having every little detail thought of and somebody taking care of you to that level, and then having this epic villa that's super private and well curated, and the decor is, locally centered and all of that. I would say those are really nice experiences. I would say that that's not where I usually stay or would prefer or would necessarily book on my own. But when I go for events and that's what I'm greeted with, it's certainly a nice and welcome surprise. So I'd say just thoughtful, experiential design. And that can be done at different price points, right? It doesn't have to just be at the $2,500 a night, Four Seasons in Punta Mita. It doesn't have to be that. It can be delivered at $250 a night, right? At a fraction of that, like at 1/10 of that. And, it's really like what in that moment is like meeting you and really like speaking to you, and I think that is important in how we kind of find experiences, how we book them, and then how we experience them is like, what do we need right now in life? Like, where are we? Like, do we need that silent yoga retreat with no phone in Costa Rica for 5 days? Awesome. That's different from what I just said. And they both have a time and a place, and they both have an ideal guest.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side of those incredible properties, what was the worst hospitality experience you've ever had?
This is partly my fault. So I do fly and travel on a whim. I book often and like to travel seat of my pants. I don't like itineraries. I'm pretty highly regimented and scheduled in my work life. So when I'm like traveling leisure, I like to not have any of that. So I'm not one of those people that plans trip months out or plans an itinerary when I'm somewhere. Like here, I might be in Moab till Friday. I might stay till Monday. I just don't know, and that's fine. But this one was partly my fault. I decided to leave literally at around 12 noon. I decided on New Year's Eve, a couple of years ago in COVID, to get out of New York City. I'm based partly in New York City and upstate. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be in New York. It's COVID. It was like 2021. I was like, where can I go that's cool? I had a couple of friends down in Tulum. I literally decided at noon, was on a flight by 3 p.m. to Tulum, Cancun, and then you drive 2 hours, hour and a half. I got into Tulum at like 11 p.m., was able to meet up with friends, be there for the turn of the year, on the beach, dancing, amazing from just being in Manhattan in my apartment, 10 hours, not even 8 hours before.
Yeah.
But because I did that, and I couldn't find last minute a room, I had to sleep on the couch of a friend at one of their places in rooms on there, and it all worked out. It was fun because we didn't get much sleep. I don't think I went to sleep till the sun was coming up. We were dancing on the beach. Like that was probably a hospitality fail, but it wasn't like a fail on a delivery of a brand or hotel. It was like a me fail. It's like sometimes you can't fly by the seat of your pants that much. Like just think a little further ahead. Like maybe on the flight or even day of before I booked the flight, I could have just gotten the hotel, but I didn't. So that
Well,
was kind
you
of a
could
funny
see
story.
this might be the publicist in me coming out, but you could see it as a fail, or was it? I mean, it sounds like an incredible experience and a great story. So,
Yeah, true. It was actually super fun. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I went. It was an awesome trip.
and final question for you. What does hospitality mean to you? And is there anyone, a person, a brand that you think has truly mastered it?
Hospitality to me means having I think the safety and the emotion around what it feels like to be with those you care about most. So that means being in a place where you feel safe enough to share, to explore, to adventure, and being emotionally called to so that you're inspired enough to want to do that. I think those things are really hard to achieve, and they're achieved in abundance when you're in the home of a close friend or a family member, or even frankly, your home, right? Because like we're probably the best hosts of our own abode, right? So it's like, how do you do that for a guest that you generally don't know, that's traveling in, that often has stuff going on in their life and maybe travel challenges that you're not aware of? How can you be a host to them? I think that's the secret, right? That's where it all happens, is how can we be a host to others when we don't know how they're arriving, what's going on in their life, but how can we treat them like a friend or a family member, right? How can we inspire them? How can we create safety for them in their stay? How can we have some kind of emotional resonance? Those that are able to achieve that, or even a degree of that, are those that really win in the long term. And those that can't, well, they just become a commodity in the business.
Absolutely. Well, Keir, this has been so much fun. Thank you for literally talking to us from the middle of the desert right now. It's been so inspiring. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's been really nice to connect with you, Katie, and your audience. And thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. It's time for today's sweet summary, where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. I feel very grateful to often leave these chats feeling deeply inspired by my guests. But Keir and his story brought that to a whole other level. While he was in prison, Keir said he had to focus on 4 things: survive, grow, adapt, and prepare. When he was released, he felt as if he was standing at a fork in the road, choosing either to let this tragedy define his life, essentially claiming the lives of 2 people, or repurposing his life for the better. He thought academia would be his path to reintegration, but when he received the final denial letter from the 7th graduate school he applied to, he stood at yet another crossroads. Was he going to let his fate and his future be decided by others, or take a conscious role in determining it for himself? While Keir's circumstances are certainly extreme, these questions touch everyone at one time or another. Am I going to let unideal circumstances define me? Am I going to let others define me? Choosing to be in charge of our own futures and fates, to determine what comes next, and more importantly, what doesn't, might be the biggest challenge of our lives. Keir's story is a reminder to take the harder but more rewarding path every time, because the alternative, as he said, is waking up in a life that was someone else's definition of success. So how do we do that? Well, according to Keir, we first need to get clear on where we're currently at. What's working well? What's not? What does your dream life look like? Who are you surrounded by? Where do you live? What do you do on a typical day? When you're clear on where you are and where you want to go, it becomes easier to see the delta. And of course, then what it's going to take to get you from point A to B. A lot of Keir's secret is in the power of focus, of singularity, of being vulnerable enough to ask his closest friends and family members for feedback on what he can do better, and to create safety in his life. Because as he said, when we feel safe, we are free to explore, to adventure. This all sounds good in theory, but we all know this is really hard to do. So what is that reward on the other side? In Keir's words, it's building a life you're proud of and finding a destination that is happiness. And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media @sweetsuccesspodcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.